Hype Network presents.
On this episode of season 4, let's talk.
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned. It's funny you mentioned cycling because I didn't mention a while ago that I was very extroverted. Cycling can be very, introverted, socially distant. So it's kind of funny to think about. I chose a sport that you usually do on your own. You usually just when I go on rides, I usually just go on my own. Every now and then, of course, I would have bike buddies I go on rides with, but more often than not, it's really just me on my bike going to various places around the metro or
On behalf of my guest here in the Rajiv Show, we would like to wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of the Rajiv Show. It's been a long time since I've enlisted this next guest. Legendary teacher, a legendary podcast teacher. Wow, you can't. It's ironic that it's very hard. It's rare to hear that being said by a host. But podcast that is a teacher, very very cool, very millennial, and one of the coolest intros in his podcast, which he's going to talk about later on. Interesting beyond measures. Um, what else can I add to this to this golden introduction? Well, let me just introduce my guest today, Jay-em Estrella, the teacher of all teachers. Hey pal, how you doing?
hey, thank you, Raj. Thank you for having me on your show. You're too kind with your introduction, but I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, to be honest, I was actually running out of words to add on to that conversation, to add on to that introduction. So I was just wondering, what
Yeah, I
else?
mean, you definitely got the thesaurus out and then just gave out all the adjectives that you could give.
Yeah, basically the thesaurus is saying no more. We're done. So I'm. This has been long. This has been a long time planned, and yeah, I'm glad to have you here, and it's going to be an interesting conversation
Yeah,
because you have a
yeah.
lot of stuff interesting to talk about. But before we get into the conversation, of course, my listeners want to know who are you. So could you give a little bit of background about yourself?
Yeah, so I am a teacher, as you already mentioned. I teach science in high school, and I'm also the host of the Pisara Tales, which is a podcast on education where I talk about the things that I learn, the stuff that I hear about on the news with regards to education here in the Philippines. I also have guests, former teachers, colleagues, peers, and yeah, I'm pretty much just that, a teacher, a millennial teacher.
There you go. That's the word that I said in the beginning, millennial teacher, and of course the podcast, millennial podcaster teacher. I don't. I'm trying
One of
to.
the young, probably on the younger end of the millennial generation, not the older end.
Yeah, and it's rare to have a guest that has that weird combination in the tracks. I mean, that that's something else.
Yeah.
So, of course, before we start this conversation, I'm sure you've also. Apparently, I remember someone tagged me on one of our group conversations where you asked the same question that I asked to a guest of yours, and I had to point you out on
Yeah,
that because So of course, I'm gonna ask that question
not
to you.
intentionally, not intentionally, but I only realized that when I listened to a few of your episodes, and then great. We actually have the same opening question. So this is the first time I'll be asked. I don't know if this is the first time I'll be asked that, but at least it's refreshing
Yeah.
to be on the other end of it.
Yeah. And it's unexpected
Go
too
ahead,
because
take it
yeah.
away.
If you and I were classmates in high school, who were you in high school, pal? Are you the introverted, the
Oh,
extroverted, the kid in front? As a teacher, I presume you're the valedictorian, competitive. I'm gonna kick your ass kind of personality. That's what I feel.
oh man.
If you and I were classmates, who are you in high school, pal?
Yeah, well, you're definitely wrong. I'm not the smartest kid in the class. Well, I used to be when I was in elementary, and
Hmm.
then the stint of being a young smart kid ended
Hmm.
there because when I got into high school, I was pretty much because I'm a student from Philippine Science High School,
Hmm.
and so as the old adage goes, we are considered to be without bragging, but this is what the teachers have been telling us, that we are the cream of the crop.
Hmm.
So um there are a lot of smarter kids in my batch and in my class. So there I was just any other kid, in the middle of the class, not really one of the smarter ones, but definitely not struggling, so I could keep up with the rest of them. And that just persisted until college. I'm just your usual guy. I'm definitely not introverted. I am very much the opposite of it. I derive my energy from other people. And so when this whole pandemic started, that was actually one of my struggles, because I couldn't go out, couldn't go talk to my friends in real life. So I guess that's kind of one reason why I started doing the podcast, because I needed to release all that pent up energy of not being able to talk to people, uh, or at least, well, I still talk to people, but like not being able to do it in the way that I would want, like face to face, that kind of conversation.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I'm definitely an extroverted. I was actually I think I would consider myself a social butterfly
Hmm.
back then, because I knew everyone in my batch, and then some, of course, from other batches.
Hmm.
But you know, unlike unlike the stereotypical high school class setup, wherein you have all these cliques and all that.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't think I've ever been a part of a clique per se.
Hmm.
Like, I have friends, of course, and I have varying degrees of closeness with them, but really I'm just a guy who knows everyone, and then tries to be cordial at the very least, or kind to everyone that I meet. So yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Um, you opened up podcasting, teaching, and extrovertedness. I mean, I want to open up some few more research that I've had. You're a cyclist. One
Oh, here
thing.
we go.
You're a
Yeah.
cyclist, and
uh mhm.
you, me, and Roma Miklat, the legendary Roma Miklat. Shout out to her. We have that three
Yeah.
things in common, and I'm sure I've already shared my story, my behalf, my experience. I mean, if you
Right.
for those who are not who don't know, JM, the teacher, my guest, the legend, my teacher and the guest. Sorry, I supposed to, I forgot the first word. Is a cyclist, and try. It's nice that you're keeping yourself healthy in crazy times, especially in isolation. And I think
Yeah.
that's the one aside from, of course, podcasting. I think that's the one thing that you and I can resonate with because of because of experiences,
Yeah.
because of stuff. Because when you're traveling, sometimes philosophy wise, you got a lot of stuff to open up in terms of travels. And yeah, I mean, guys, you need to stalk my guest. I swear it. I'm endorsing. I'm endorsing that because
It's funny. It's funny
yeah.
you mentioned cycling, because I didn't mention a while ago that I was very extroverted. Cycling can be very introverted, socially distant.
Mm.
So it's kind of funny to think about. I chose a sport that you usually do on your own.
Yeah.
You usually just when I go on rides, I usually just go on my own. Every now and then, of course, I would have bike buddies. I go on rides with, but more often than not, it's really just me on my bike going to various places around the metro, or I live in Pasig, and we're actually in like near the border with Rizal.
Yeah.
So in Rizal there are a lot of mountains that mountainous paths. So there's a lot of slopes, mga tawag natin sa Tagalog, mga ahon, mga ganun.
Interesting.
So it's really nice biking up. Yeah, it's really nice biking up to the mountains. Just 2 days ago, even when it was raining, I actually took my I built a new bike. Well, built is a strong word. It's more of like it's already a complete bike, but I upgraded some parts with it that I bought. So I took that baby for a spin. Even if it was raining, it was like before my shift at work. So I went up to Antipolo. So
Wow.
if you're familiar with the Antipolo Church, right?
I've
So
heard
it's
of it.
usually a trip that I make. Yeah, so it's usually a trip that I make every now and then, just for fun, just for exercise, because it's a really I wouldn't say it's a technical climb, but it's really steep.
Mm.
There are areas along Sumulong Highway where I usually go through. There are areas where the gradient is pretty steep, and so if you're not well fit, or if you're not knowledgeable on how to work your gears, it can be a struggle. So but I've throughout the months that I've been cycling, I've learned how to navigate it. So it's now a fairly easy climb. I could just uh you know finish it in around 2 hours. And yeah, I took my new bike up there. It was raining though, so it was a bit scary because roads are slippery.
Yeah.
uh, Especially going down from Antipolo. uh you know Downhill, it is a bit scary, but and I you know got caught in the downpour. Actually, got home, was really soaking
Drenched.
wet. But it's part of the fun of it. That's why it's part of the fun of cycling. So yeah, hopefully when the weather permits here in the metro, I get to go out again, if not tomorrow, on the weekend. So
Uh, it's interesting that ending to that that I was actually about to build in the narrative of the storytelling, and you already went straight into the story without the middleman, which is
sorry about
really
that. Yeah, I'm a chatty guy.
I know.
I'm a chatty guy. So
But
yeah.
that's interesting that I felt like you took me on a ride. I mean, I know I don't know where I was sitting, probably behind the wheel, but I felt like I was there in your journey. And that ending, that resolution to your ending, was kind of like an interesting thing, because I kind of related to that. And I've mentioned this also, I think, in Roma Miklas episode, or uh, the folks that I've spoken to about cycling, is that in India, it was much more different in terms of me. One, I'm gonna share a little bit of story, and I think I mentioned this also in a previous episode. Is that I used to cycle during the time when I used to study animation, and one of these government college schools called Chitrakala Parikchat. So
Mhm.
in the school, in the college, is very very far from where the house is. Um, that was the first time where usually traveling takes a lot of time. And then I don't know, I was cycling. I used to cycle. I was still cycling at that time. I wanted to take I want to take advantage. At that time, I had no gears or anything. I'm not really proficient with the gears. Even if you
Right, right.
explain it to me like 110 times, I'd still be a traditionalist, no matter if it's
So
uphill,
so so
downhill.
you're using like a what do you call this, a single gear, or do you have gears, you just don't use them?
At that time, with my cycle, I had only one gear, and that's just one gear. That's just the regular
Right, right.
standard one. And I think the cycle that I
Mhm.
had was it was kind of a second hand. I don't know if I don't remember if it was a second hand. It's been long since I've seen that cycle. I don't even remember what the picture of it was. But it was just a regular standard good old cycle that had a clipboard at the back, got a seat in the back and everything, no basket in the front. So it was a standard stuff. I take that to wherever needs me, where I need to go. And um, the first time when I really took it to the max, took it to the trip, is when I went to this college, as I mentioned earlier. And that happened, that happened. There were
Yeah.
many instances heading towards college itself, heading towards that college itself. I was competing with, mind you, cars. And then there were a lot of accidents. I'll share the accidents later, but there were many a times I also uh, embraced the thing and picked up some few skills that I didn't actually mention in Roma. Thinking of it, I never really mentioned on Roma Miklat's episode. Shout out to Roms if she drops by and listens to this episode. Uh,
Yeah, Roma and I have talked about cycling more
yeah,
than a few times. So hopefully when all this subsides, I get to go on. I get to go back to Singapore and then go on a ride together.
yeah.
That
It's
would be fun.
it's funny. I wanted to share a story that thing. But I'll share that to you in private message later on. uh, there's
Right.
that, so coming back to the story that the experiences that I've had. I've competed with cars and, mind you, buses. I'm sure you've seen those images in India with the buses are so huge that sometimes they may fall over due to the weight, because there's a lot of people who are fitted inside the thing. It's funny how I've competed with all of those. And uh, I remember this one specific moment where I was heading home. Yeah, it was a regular afternoon. No, it was not really rainy or anything. So I was crossing this road, and the normal routine and the normal rule for crossing is, of course, look sideways before you cross a heavy thing.
Right.
And it
Right.
was an empty street, and then this guy comes in straight. I didn't even see him coming in, because I assumed that the thing, because I looked both ends before I crossed. And then this guy comes in full speed,
Right.
bangs my
Right.
cycle, and dings my cycle in half. And basically, the head of my cycle is at least twisted 35 degrees, you know 35 degrees.
Oh no.
So thing. And then, yeah, we got dinged. There was no fighting, no argument. I think I called my dad up, and he showed up, and then the guy just took off. Yeah, he just took off even during the arrival of my father. It was one of those worst thing. And from then on out, I think that cycle, we tried to fix it up a bit, but still you could see the dent, and how the handles, the forward handle is tilted a little bit, about 20 degrees, because the metal was really
Right.
dinged.
Right.
And yeah, those were aside from that, there were many many stories about my experiences. Like, there's this place called Palace Grounds in Bangalore, where it's a one hill up.
Mhm.
When you're heading towards, from me, my direction, when I'm heading towards college, it's a very high steep hill that is very short. And then you can just it's just easy. And then once you drop from the tip, it goes down like a thing. And then you don't need to even pedal, you just need to just go drift or something like that. It's just a real fun experience. Often the times when I finish lunch and then I go straight to college, sometimes I wake up late. And back then, looking back at the life, it was really interesting. uh, and I really dreaded that part of the trip, because mostly at that time I take my cycle to the left side, because the roads is the cars that are going forward are on the left side of the road. And then
Right.
the people who are coming
You
towards you,
drive on the wrong side of the road.
yeah, I mean, aside from the cars, I think the system is also is different, because they follow the British
Right. Right.
system. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I used to cycle in the corner, and every time I sing, The first time I remember when I was heading to the college, I was looking, I was mastering the route in my head when we went to that college with my dad, and I memorized everything. I memorized. It was kind of weird coming to think of it. Anytime I'm in a car or something, it's like I built this Google map of images in my head that paints this entire image of where I want to go, and it's really interesting where if you and I have a coffee and Baguio or anything of that case, and then you're nearby a specific area, the first question that I ask is landmark, so that I build the Google thing in my
Yeah.
head. I don't need Google to tell me that. It's that kind of stuff. I did that, and then those journeys, I swear it was really interesting beyond your imagination. I mean, you're competing with cars coming in, coming out, and it's really hard. Really hard with the one gear. That's, mind you, that's just the cycle. I've used that cycle for almost 2 years, and many accidents, and many, not more than 2 years, but the longest of the journey was that extent of 2 years. That was really interesting. uh, yeah, and it was fun. It was really fun. So, since you mentioned the story about your experience, um, I gotta ask though. This is I hope this is an interesting question to ask a teacher. Is that when you started cycling, I presume from what I know is, I presume when you started cycling, that was before the pandemic. Did you take some of the principles of cycling into your work? Like the discipline of focusing on the road and ignoring everything. And do you have a philosophical thing when you cycle that correlates with your life? Kind of self-improvement style
Well,
question.
first, right, right. Well, first of all, I actually never cycled before this pandemic. I mean, I know how to ride a bike. I've
Yeah.
learned ever since I was a kid.
Huh.
But cycling, like going out, for commutes or for leisure, I've never really started that until last year. When we were on lockdown,
Hmm.
and there weren't a lot of public transport that can be used, and of course nobody really want to because it's a bit dangerous at
Yeah.
the time. So I started out with my bike that was my old kid's bike,
Hmm.
actually. That was it was stuck at home. It was already leaky, and I went to the nearest bike stop and just tried to restore it as much as I can, and that's what I started using
Hmm.
until I saved up. I saved up some money and then bought new bikes. As the months went on,
Hmm.
and as I learned more about the sport. In terms of philosophical views, um, I don't really, I don't really go philosophical when I go on rides. I mean, for me, the reason why I go on bike rides is because it's my way of distressing.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm an extrovert, and being cooped up at home is a difficult experience for me. And so, getting to bike is a way of being socially distant. Of course, when I go out, I practice all the protocols. I wear a mask. I
Yeah.
bring face shield whenever I have to enter an establishment. I bring my own alcohol,
Yeah.
and I don't really hang out a lot in places where there are a lot of people. So it's really more of just my way of flushing out everything that has been stressful in life. Uh, you know, when because I work from home,
Hmm. Hmm.
we do online classes, and I teach from home. I don't go to our school. I
Yeah.
teach. So that the line between work and home has really become a lot more blurry these days, and it's really hard to turn off. And so
Yeah.
going on bike rides is my way of just decompressing, if you will. And so
Interesting.
if I were to put a philosophical spin on it, it's really just that. It's really just you know taking my time. I don't really go. I don't really speed up as much. I mean, there are times that I feel like I want to go fast and all that, but really, the bulk of the reasons why I go out, apart from using it to go to do errands, is
Mm.
to really go on trips. Like I've done several 100-kilometer rides.
Yeah.
Like the very first time I went 100 kilometers, like on in one ride. Of course there are rest stops, but like in uh, one day, the first time I went to Bulacan, as
Mm.
far as Bulacan. So from Metro Manila, from Pasig, I went to Bulacan and back. And that was the first time I went on a very, you know, relatively long ride. And I really enjoyed the experience because back then, I only went to Bulacan by a car because that's one of our provinces. And back then, when my grandparents used to live there, we would go there on road trips and all that. And I went through the same roads, but just on a bike this time, and it was a surreal experience. And ever since then, I've gone on several 100-kilometer rides as well. It's really just that. It's really just to try to soak in uh, the outside world, if you will,
Yeah.
just so I could feel alive again.
Fascinating. I mean, yeah. I mean, I do agree. Yeah, de-stressing. Yeah, because isolation has that hold on you sometimes. Even when the internet. Well, to me personally, I do agree that even though we believe that the internet got a lot of people together, it feels like we're also distancing ourselves and missing the entire purpose of enjoying moments and stuff like that prior to the
Yeah,
start of the
definitely.
pandemic. So I do agree 100% that we need to de-stress. And yeah, for me, I remember this. I mentioned this to Roma also. Is that aside from cycling, I also did a lot of walking. Then there were moments also like when my cycle's wheel was punctured or anything that case in India. I used to walk like more than miles. And I hope you don't mind me sharing some of my philosophical takes in
Yeah, go
cycling.
ahead.
I mean, cycling to me is like uh yeah, I don't really consider it a sport. I consider it a form of leisure because I,
Right.
I serve as the same sentiment as yours, which is some sort of de-stress. And but the stuff that I've learned from cycling is like focusing on where you want to go and finding out how to strategize yourself. It's like playing a chess with a longer piece of board, if you know what I mean. You got the smaller chess piece. Imagine a chess piece that's the uh, size of a lightsaber, stuff like that. Finding your right place, light terrains, if the weather, stuff like that. Because like I said earlier on, I used to memorize roads, and I have this technique which is kind of like walking, cycling. It's been like a very, very obsessive technique that I've built in subconsciously while I was when once I was cycling. Which is funny is that um, I have the ability to look behind through the corner of my eye by tilting my head at least I don't exactly know the degree, but somewhere midway 60 degrees, and still focus on the road. I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense. you know and yeah, it's really it's one of those skills that you pick up because of course in India the traffic is really heavy. When I say heavy, heavy and unexpected, like there are
Yeah.
some unexpected moments, like I shared that
It's
episode.
wild out there.
Yeah. And it's just uh you have to develop some certain technique in order to swim through the waters, and to get things right, to get that thing, because it just makes things interesting. And yeah, the journey of cycling,
You
yes, yeah, yeah.
No, you mentioned that I was just reminded when you mentioned about the traffic situation in India.
Yeah.
Ever since I got into cycling here, I got to virtually know a lot more about mobility. here in the Philippines. And because here, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but here in the metro, ever since the pandemic started, since public transportation was halted for a while,
Yeah.
a lot of the people use bikes as their primary mode of transportation to get to work if they have to go to work. And just for your day-to-day errands, it really became I mean, there were already a lot of bikers here in the Philippines, but I think this pandemic exposed how much it is actually better to have roads that cater to not just cars, but pedestrians and cyclists and all that. And so, when I got into cycling, it's not just the fun side and the technical side. I also got to know a lot more about the policy side, the societal, the society side, where it's a public good. It's streets are better with a lot when it's focused more on pedestrians and cyclists. I follow a lot of uh, mobility advocates, transport advocates, who really push for better bike lanes, better infrastructure. By the way, I'm sorry if you could hear background noise. It just started to downpour again.
Oh boy.
Here. But like,
no worries.
but like I was mentioning, yeah. Can you hear it? Is
Yeah.
it bad?
It feels like I'm in an
Yeah,
ASMR episode, so I don't mind. This is normal to me.
Yeah, it's been raining for the past few days. But like I was saying, you get to know that for a lot of people, biking isn't just leisure.
Yeah.
It's not just like for you and I, we cycle for fun, for exercise. For some, it's really their only way of getting from point A to point B.
True.
And I also got to immerse myself in that world of fighting for better infrastructure for those who don't really have cars.
Yeah.
So it's it helped me to understand society a bit more, if you will. It's not just for fun. It's not just for working out. It's also for fighting for a common good, a public good.
Yeah. I mean, as a cyclist, to me, I presume that the same sentiments is that cycle. I don't know. This became like an entire conversation about cycles and cycle movement.
Yeah.
It's like
I don't really get to talk a lot about this because, of course, I do a podcast on education, and those two things couldn't be, further from each other.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess all the pent up ideas and thoughts just came out today. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good thing that I did my further research, if you know what I mean, when it came to that, when it came to cycling, because, I mean, to me, like I said, like cycling is it is leisure to one side, but it's more to life than it is. The main goal that you're trying to achieve in life is where you want to go, and it doesn't matter, actually, to be honest, in the context here that I'm reasoning out what vehicle you use. It doesn't matter what vehicle you use, as long as you know where to go and how to get there. And then you have the vision in your head, and at the most, the toughest instrument, the toughest vehicle, like I said, is the cycle, especially because the cycle, may it be, I don't know, I'm a weird cookie for saying this, but I don't know how I actually, I'm gonna see how this is gonna pan out. But my philosophy of cycling is it is the flimsiest vehicle that gets you from point A to point B, but it's the most creative vehicle that gets you there. If you think about it, I don't know how you're gonna see this. The way I see it is that it, the way the instrument, I mean to say, the way the vehicle is so creatively flimsy yet creative is that you can take that anywhere. You can park that anywhere. You can do anything you want. And then, yeah, if there are some tiny spaces that you need, like I said, if you're heading to a specific goal, and then the entire road is like the entire road is preoccupied, and then you need to find a way to get through point A to point B. You can take the cycle and take it to a different dimension. Like I said, you can squeeze into smaller spaces. Imagine a car trying to do that, and those kind of tiny details, the creative things. I mean, prior to squeezing into tiny alleys, there are a lot of stuff that a cycle can provide to you and gives you health as well. So yeah, I don't know. That was not me farting. There was a vehicle that was also traveling from my end. My bad. So yeah,
But yeah, you're right. With the whole idea of getting into alleys, I found it very convenient on a bike. So and I actually got to go to places where I want to normally go. So I think we could look at it that way, that you know cycling is just like life, where you there are many paths to go to where we need to go.
yeah,
I guess it's more of just for us to keep safe and enjoy the ride.
yeah. And yeah, I mean, I love this conversation. I mean, I'm glad. I'm glad that you and I resonated well in this whole conversation. Is really interesting beyond measures. Um, One thing I want to share though, but before I share, you opened up teaching and podcasting, which is two topics that have an ing in the end of it. That's the only similar. That's the only similar joke that I wanted to pull out of that. Um, before we get into those topics, folks, we will be right back after these few short messages. Do you want to get great deals? Go to Pipe Marketplace. Visit pipenetwork.co/marketplace and use the promo code TRS to get exclusive discounts. Chat with them now. Basta Podcast, Pipe yan.
Dear listener, have you ever had a complicated situation with someone you love? I'm not a relationship expert, but I sure have gone through a handful of ups and downs with my own relationships. So I invite you to join in the conversation in my podcast, Sincerely Yours, where we'll talk about the discreet things we do in relationships that harm us. Some may be hard to admit to ourselves, but that's the road to building healthy relationships. I hope to see you there. Sincerely yours, Maria.
Hey folks, welcome back to our conversation here. I like to make this grand entry because my guest is one of the phenomena. I'm sure you heard the first half of it. We spoke about cycling, and it has been an educational. If you got the pun there, good luck. But if you didn't, good luck. It has been an educational conversation, the first few half, and how we philosophized and enjoy life, and especially enjoy. We promote the healthy living in terms of cycling. Now, my guest and I are going to talk about teaching and podcasting, and it was a perfect blend. On the first half, for those who are tuning in, to me personally, I enjoy the perfect blend of our conversation with regards to how you philosophize life, and I hope you picked up a lot from there. I mean, like I said, it has been an education, and uh, and yeah, I don't know. I was trying to follow up something there, but I forgot what my words fell down. Is like, can I help you? The English just went, can I help you? So yeah, I mean, I hope I got my message there. And of course, my guest, Jay-em Estrella, the host of the Pisara Tales, and we're just gonna continue this conversation because half of my script is falling off, and yeah, um, we're gonna talk about. I want to start from the genesis of teaching, and then we'll revelation it up with the podcasting, because I have a feeling teaching came before podcasting. Am I right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, what's the story behind teaching? What made you want to, as an extrovert, a cyclist, a healthy person, who likes to get in shape and just have a positive life, made you decide to get into teaching? I'm just curious. I mean, that's been a curious question that I've had in my mind.
I got into teaching back in 2019. Coming out of college, that was my third job. And I realized that because of my first two jobs were actually chemistry jobs. I graduated BS chemistry
Hmm.
in UP. So I took those two jobs that I took were part of my practice. And, I realized after those two jobs that I wanted something else. Chemistry and practice was a lot different than it was from when I was in college. And so thankfully, I applied to the school in Quezon City that was nearby my house.
Yeah.
And I didn't have education units. I only had like 3 units worth back in college, and that was for an elective.
Hmm.
But thankfully, they took me in, and now I am preparing for my third school year with the school. So it's been a fun ride. It still is actually. So I when I was in high school,
Hmm.
this is something that I thought about already. So, but I didn't really think much of it because part of my contract being scholar in Philippine science is that we have to take science courses. That's why I took chemistry,
Yeah.
and so I was dead set on becoming a scientist. But life happens, and God directed me elsewhere. So I really felt that teaching was this calling that I was made for, and so yeah, we're here. We're here now.
Interesting. Interesting. And then, wow, you just did. There was a Pandora's box that you missed out there, which is science. Now I'm thinking about that meme, that science meme. Wow, science. And interesting.
Yeah.
Science. What was the story there? Because to me, I have a story to share, and before I share my story, of course, my guest has to go first. What was the story there? What was the fascination? Is there a specific topic or a specific page of a book that said, "Hey, I want this thing just opened my world, and uh, I." I'm just sucked into it, and I just want to be in this world, and I want to dominate in this world, and do my best and learn more and open more doors for people to be fascinated about this part of science. What was that starting momentum bringer for you?
Well, I've loved science ever since I was a kid.
Hmm.
I guess I was just made for it. I excelled when I was in elementary. I excelled in all the subjects, but particularly in science and math. I guess my mind was just analytical in that sense. I mean, uh, my dad finished engineering, although he didn't become an engineer, but he did finish electrical engineering,
Hmm.
and my mom finished commerce. So that whole math and science background is really in my DNA, I guess. So when I was growing up, I was interested in anything science, uh, all the fields actually. But it
Hmm.
was just when I entered Philippine Science High School that really my fascination for it became a lot more than it is. So that was when I started really thinking about becoming a scientist. In fact, when I started out, I thought I was going to be an engineer, but throughout the years staying in Pisay, uh, I decided other things. Eventually, I got into chemistry because I enjoyed my my stay in third year chemistry because
Mm.
of my teacher. Shout out to Sir Lester Mendoza. I don't know if you're ever going to listen to this, but he was one of the teachers that inspired me in chemistry because he really taught it in such a way that was, appealing.
Ah,
And
interesting.
of course, I had a lot of inspirational teachers throughout my stay in high school, in elementary, and even in college. So uh, that's where it really began. From childhood. I was the kind of guy. My parents would actually say that uh, when I was growing up, I memorized capitals letters. I memorized models of cars whenever we would go outside and look at cars. um I guess it was really just that. It was really just you know we built for it. Like I was destined to be in the sciences.
Interesting, interesting. And wow, for me, this is one funny story that I haven't shared to anyone, and this is special.
Yes, please go on.
This is a special one that um, uh, I cannot really say it is the term of science, but I think science, archaeology was one of my favorite subjects growing up
Mm-hmm.
when I first saw the Jurassic 3 movie. This is one of the weirdest. This is gonna be one of the weirdest.
Ooh.
I'm sure we all seen the Jurassic and we've been traumatized. The Jurassic films back then it was VHS or those tapes, and it was
Right, right.
it was interesting to actually be honest. It kind of sounds to me now it sounds a little bit embarrassing to share the story, but yeah, what embarrasses you makes you famous at some point. Um, yeah, that was one of my first thing before I got into arts, which I had an interesting conversation about my guest. One of my guest episodes on my philosophy of arts and my work ethic and life and everything in arts. But this fascination came upon me after watching that whole episode of just just watching dinosaurs and being blown away, and
Right, right.
it was actually funny. Is like there were those nights where, of course, you wake up in the middle of the night thinking a T-Rex will come and visit you in the middle of the night, and because that was like one of those scariest. Like imagine a child, imagine around 5 or 6 years old, give or take tops. Um, you know, getting to watch this and then evolve, see the thing evolve around your imagination and takes your imagination to a whole new level. And it's just that was my fascination at first, and then eventually some of us learned how to grow up and we needed to we need to uh, probably serious it up a bit. So of course, that was the first thing that I really wanted to actually pursue. To be honest, that was one of the things. And then, yeah, I mean, eh, yeah, like I said, you heard it first, folks, from here, from the Rajiv show. I really had a fascination for dinosaurs. And I have a feeling by now they've already discovered every single dinosaur that I wish I would have been there to sing. Because it's a strange
Maybe not,
fascination.
but
It's a strange fascination ever since Jurassic Park. The child's imagination sometimes takes it to a whole new level. Sometimes it's so unrealistic, but then some certain things that are unrealistic makes life much more easy, much more interesting to pursue. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, that's my philosophy. That's my philosophical take on it. So yeah.
right, right. Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, I mean, teaching, I love it. Teaching is shout out to all the teachers who are tuning in and for pursuing
Yes,
this,
definitely.
because teaching for me my personal take. I mean, I don't know how you're gonna take this. Hopefully not in a saying, because I have a feeling having a conversation with you on different takes on education is a bit debatable because we both have different insights. um
No,
I,
it's
I,
fine. It's fine.
I find certain things about education a little bit flimsy, and um, And I do believe that, I don't know if I had a conversation with people, but I do believe that the system of education really needs to upgrade itself, just like Zoom, just like your phone, just like every single thing, And uh, I was, uh, I'm glad at least that the pandemic gave something good to the educational systems in terms of adaptabilities and stuff like that, which is really, really interesting. It's just that I guess my take my take, so don't take this as a wrong way. My take on education is that, for me personally, I think you know my story. I'm a dropout. So uh
Right.
a dropout from high school because I could not cope up with the certain standards that, saying, I didn't really know how to define my education and all the learnings that I've spent. And that is one of those takes that I often question. What is it that education lacks? That saying, and I have a feeling it's just that I think it's somewhere, to me, from my perspective of it, is more on, um, something's got to give in terms of, how the educational system is, or uh, there are certain solutions that are not spread out, are not spread out to the majority of learners, like special educations for certain learners, like visual learners and stuff like that, multi intelligent learners. Because oftentimes I really,
Right.
like,
Right.
I really carry that burden with me, like I carry that cross with me every time. Every time I think of the word education, it's more like the connotation, or the word that grinds my bones, is the thought about being money minded, and how universities are, you know taking charge of certain things, adding price tags to every single thing that a child does. And then at the end of the day, the child goes out to the real world and realizes that, um, realizes and then has that negative impact. Oh, this is, you know but that's how, like I said, that's how I experienced it. I'm not speaking on behalf of thing. I'm pro education. I love to learn. And I think the only learning
No,
ways,
yeah.
like, for me, my way of learning, if you don't mind me sharing, is that oftentimes I want to share this. Actually, I don't know if I did. um
Right,
wi-
please.
this is a same this is the thing that I do. I don't This is a weird, this is, like I said, this is what defines me as a weird cookie, is that uh it's funny, looking back at my college classes and all these other things that I've done in college. I often get disappointed about the learning that I have, especially in music school. It's really, really weird. It's really, really weird to for me, because there are times where, um like, when the pandemic was not existent, I used to walk home. There were times that jeeps, taxi fares, and
Right.
everything used to be expensive. So going back home is either, for me personally, is either just walking from Baguio all the way to La Trinidad. It's kind of like my therapy. And I do a lot of thinking, so I put my head down and do a lot of thinking. And it's funny, there are those certain moments in the learning part of it, is that I suddenly get educated about the things that I wish I should have answered at that time. I'm only answering it in delay. I don't know if it makes sense. you
Right.
know
Well,
and
if I may,
yeah, yeah,
if I may.
yeah,
Right. So, first off, I just want to make a comment a while ago when you mentioned the pandemic and how it uh, it caused us to be more adaptive and all that. Uh, yes, to some extent, it is. I don't know. It is. I wouldn't. Say, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's a blessing, because it's definitely a horrible thing. But it did expose a lot of faults,
yeah,
especially in our education system here in the Philippines. I actually did an episode on that when we talked about the learning crisis. The World Bank actually mentioned that the Philippines is actually having a learning crisis in
Mm.
education. So you can definitely check out my episode on that. But just to say that it really exposed a lot of the ills, and I don't blame you for having your point of view on education. That you were mentioning something about how conventional, or the typical path of being educated, going to school, didn't really sit well with you, and that's perfectly fine, because
Yeah.
education is multifaceted. It's not just being in a classroom and learning things from the classroom. In fact, there are a lot of people who learn a lot more from outside the classroom than inside.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that is what you're experiencing, or what you experience. I think that's more indicative of the education system that you might have experienced when you were growing up.
Yeah.
That you were exposed to a system where the goal of education was not to produce educated people, but rather to produce educated workers. We live in a capitalistic society, and it is undeniable that some educational institutions, their main goal isn't really to produce intelligent people or wise people. Their main
Yeah.
goal is to produce people who will be capable as workers, as productive members of society.
Yeah.
Right? That's where your notion of putting a price tag on things and all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, the commodification of education is a whole other thing that we might not have time for to talk about.
Yeah.
Going back, I think when people, when I hear these kinds of stories of, people who don't finish their formal education and still doing fine, of course, I'm happy for them. But at the same time, I think it's something that should really, I wouldn't say alarm, but really put educational leaders to really think about what their why is. Why are they in the education sector?
Hmm.
Is it really to educate, or is it for something else?
Hmm.
When as educators, we need to understand, why are we in this business? Because definitely is not a business. Why are we in this profession, rather?
Hmm.
Because it is not a lucrative thing. It is not a lucrative profession. At least here in the Philippines, it's not. In other countries, teachers are well paid, but nobody. I've never heard of someone who went into teaching for the money, because this is not where the money is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So there must be something else then, as to why you're becoming a teacher. And we as educators, we have to constantly reflect on the actions that we make, on the policies that we hold, all the things that we do inside and outside the classroom. That because that is one of my fears. One of my fears as an educator is having a student go through my class, and then at the end of the day, feeling like they don't want to learn. Like, I get if they're having a hard time understanding, say the topics that I talked about in science.
Yeah.
Nobody really gets it. Not everyone gets it the first time.
Yeah.
But I would be damned if a student passes through me, and then at the end of the day, or at the end of the school year, they realize that they don't want to go to school. Because I do my best to not just to teach these kids, but to make it an enjoyable process for them. Because everybody deserves to have quality education. Everybody deserves to to learn, right? It is not just to learn what 1+1 is, but it's also to understand more about life. Whenever I teach, it's not just simply talking about scientific facts. I try to apply it in daily life. Why are they going to learn about the mitochondria? Why are they going to learn about chemistry? Why are they going to learn about physics, or what have you? It's not just I tell my students this at the start of every school year. my goal is not to make scientists out of you, but my goal is to, to equip you with the skills to become better members of society. What are those skills? Critical thinking, having, being analytical of everything that is around you, being, understanding, how to apply the skills that we teach in class into your daily lives. It's more than just the facts. It's the skills, it's the wisdom that comes with it.
Yeah.
And so when educators would focus more on that rather than I mean, of course, standards, educational standards have to be met, but the tendency of a lot of these educators would be to take to go into class and look at a fictional or a real life checklist as to, okay, what am I going to teach today? I have to teach about speed or velocity or what have you, and really just confine themselves in that thinking that, okay, today we're going to talk about velocity, and then blah 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 blah, and then you show all these all these formulas and all that, and at the end of the day the kid is just sitting there like, huh, right, what am I going to use this for? That's why a lot of kids ask that question, what am I going to use this for? Right? It's more than just the velocity. Of course, we're teaching you how to solve problems, we're teaching you how to understand why cars go vroom, basically. So it's more than just that. So yeah, I think we as educators, myself included, we go on a constant process of reflecting. And whether or not you're an educator or not, I think that's something that people can take away in their lives, that we're not perfect, right? We ought to be in a constant state of reflection, because there's always room to improve. I myself, you at the start of this episode, you were mentioning that I was a legendary teacher. I have improved, Jack. Okay, I've only been teaching teaching completely for 2 years. I haven't learned anything, at least not yet. So, and the day I say to myself that I've learned everything I need to learn is the day I stop becoming a teacher, because even teachers, they don't know everything. Right? And to think that you can know everything in this world is absurd.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we as humans, we ought to be constantly reflecting on our actions, on why are we here. So yeah.
Really, wow. I love that. I'm blown away by that. I thought we were, to be honest, I had like a million visions of how our conversation in our podcast is going to be ending up like a fist fight or something, because we got two philosophies here. And I'm glad at least there were no fists flying around. There was only mic muting with the technology.
Well,
Sometimes.
you are 200 kilometers away, more than 200 kilometers away. So I mean 400 kilometers away. So it's not like I could throw fists at you right now.
But
no, just kidding.
Yeah,
of course it's fine.
I do agree with all the things that you said. I do agree with saying that the teaching, you teach more to learn about it, and and I really do agree to 100%, is that they're just like, to me, like I said, I've seen a lot of teachers who really have who have impacted me. I won't deny it. I mean, I'm sharing this with you because I find it that there are some teachers that I've come across in college who came into the classroom and just blew us all away, blew us all in the water, or just made that impression that yes, they're in it for it. And then you could see, like, 30 years, 20 years, you could see, like, at some point some of them are so tired, and they're just I've made some of my own inspections on how certain teachers teach. There are some teachers who come in, they look tired, and it feels like they're putting that pressure to you now, and I'm tired, so you gotta be tired kind of feelings. I'm just putting 100 algebra questions for you to find X, or all that good, all this crazy stuff. And but yeah, I mean, I genuinely love those teachers who really take the take the conversation about the subject matter to a next level. To be honest, I actually want to shout out to a teacher. I forgot his name. Uh, that blew me away. And I remember, I think our that was yeah, that was my second time taking that subject, which is I think literature in college. If you know who you are, that shout out goes to you. And I remember specifically that uh, that moment where I was just blown away. Like I said, I was just blown out of the water, and I was just there, and I was just there with the moment, and I was just enjoying the moment, and I just said, "Oh man, I love to sit down and have a conversation with this teacher." And I think we even took a
Right.
selfie in the end of the end of the class because that's how those rare is really really a rare example to find those types of teachers because like I said, high school, if I could compile all the teachers that I met from high school and from most of them are already exhausted and tired. I don't know what, probably, yeah, something bad at home. They're taking it to school or something like that. I do understand that humanity, uh, that's what makes us perfect is the imperfectness that we have is that sometimes we don't expect what the other person is going to do, and that's yeah, but I've said a lot. I've
Right.
said a lot. And yeah, I mean,
No, it's
like,
fine. It's fine.
I felt like I became J.M. Estrella without the glasses for a moment. But yeah, it has been an education. I mean, 2 years in the books. To me personally, 2 years in the books is better than 0 years because at least you still have the heart for it. You still have the fire in it, and I do believe that some of your students will have that understanding because I'm sure they will tell their kids that somewhere down the line that I met this cool teacher who is a podcaster, sorry, not used to be, I mean, who is a podcaster and a teacher, and spoken to a lot of amazing people, especially a legend.
Some of my students know. Well, I did tell about my students I have a podcast, so I don't know if they listen to it, but
Yeah.
they know that.
I do believe that somewhere out there someone is emulating you and you have like a JM Junior somewhere in Pasig or somewhere in Quezon or online students, they're all over the
That would be
place.
scary. So
But then again, that enthusiasm, that energy, that vibe, and that heart to speak out your mind, it takes a lot. And also podcasting, I mean, now we're transitioning from teaching to podcasting to me has been
right.
therapy. I'm proud to say, I mean, I think I've said it a lot now that this year has been one of my most toughest challenge because I really wanted to put the pressure on me. Being a fresh graduate of music, um, the types of pressures that I was facing uh, were not the things that I really wanted, and it gave me a bad impression of what to expect in the world of music. Hence, I wanted to turn a new direction. I just wanted to leave that life and go to another direction in my life. And I think I mentioned this also in my season 3 or yeah, season 3. And this podcasting changed
Right.
everything for me. This Let's Talk series is one of, like I said, countless of times my super duper mega mega project. And I'm happy to say that with my guest, who is my 62nd guest, uh, I'm proud to have hit this kind of point in my episode series because my season yeah, because down the line this is like one of my biggest achievements in life because I've never hit, to be honest, I'll be real with you. I've never hit more than 10 episodes, and this goes beyond 10 episodes. And this is like My
Yeah.
end goal is like 65, which I've by the end of 65, I'm so happy that I've already like conquered half of the year or the entire year of 2021, which is unheard of for me personally. That's like a record breaking thing for me. Hence my no die attitude kind of thing towards this thing. And yeah, that's how I say. I'm sorry if I opened up my thing. It's just like I don't know. Having a
No, it's okay.
conversation with my
Yeah, I
teacher
mean,
makes me open up.
of course, no, of course, we're all proud of the work that you've done, and we can see that you're very much enjoying what you do. So yeah, just keep it up.
Cheers, cheers. And yeah, I mean, a little bit of story before we wrap up this conversation. What really got you? I'm curious. What really got you into podcasting? Of course, that's one thing that I wanted to ask.
Well, like I mentioned, I'm an extrovert, and I wanted to talk. I just wanted to talk.
Yeah.
I thought about being a content creator. I mean, I think a lot of the people, when we had our lockdowns, a lot of people really thought about what can they do to pass the time,
Yeah.
or you know, do a lot of them got into content creation, and I thought to myself, I kind of want to get into that, but I don't want to do a vlog because, well, I don't have a nice camera, and I don't really know. I'm not good at editing video, and so I thought about podcasting because it's simpler. I just have to talk. People don't have to see my face. So, and I just went with it. I mean, I already listened to a lot of podcasts already back then. Of course,
Yeah.
one of my, bigger inspirations would be Mo Twister and Nico Ramos. And over on the other side, in America, I used to listen to a lot of sports podcasts because I watched the NBA. So, the people from the starters, although they're called No Dunks now, Jay Skeets, Taz Mellas, those guys. I've already listened to a lot of podcasts, and when I was starting out as a teacher, I was trying to look for podcasts I could listen to, and then that's where I noticed where there aren't really a lot of or there aren't really any podcast education that are focused on Filipinos. A lot of the podcasts in the education section of Spotify and Apple and all that, they are by Americans. They are by Westerners. And of course, that could give me one perspective, but I thought, why not make one as a Filipino? Because podcasting here in the Philippines, for the past few years, it's on the rise, and I think it's the next frontier in terms of media. Not just watching from YouTube, but also listening. So I thought about that, and yeah, that's why I started the Pisara Tales. I originally thought this was just going to be a way for me to journal my stories, but I got into interviews, I got to talk to other people, I got to explore other topics that I kind of treated this as my professional development at work.
Interesting.
Because of the podcast, I read a lot more about being a teacher.
Yeah.
More than I thought I would be. So I subconsciously forced myself to research more about education because of the podcast. So that's what I like about it. And of course, getting to share my stories, my points of view, and getting to talk to other educators as well, other Filipino educators as well. So that's what I like about it. And that's how I got into podcasting.
Lovely. I mean, wow, wow. Every time you talk, I don't know why I don't have anything to follow up to that. I don't know why. You're so powerful.
Grabe ang powerful.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, often there are like certain things that I want to say, and then suddenly, oh man, okay, teacher just finished. What do you want to say next? It's kind of, that's like my brain telling me some stuff like that. But I love this conversation. I mean, at least we understand two ends. I mean, in summary, to how the conversation went is I love the storytelling. We opened up cycling out into the mountains and started having a conversation, a short debate, and a little bit of it was close to a debate. It was like an opening towards a debate between coming from uh, the different side of education, and of course uh, pro education, and I don't know how to classify myself. I can't, I don't want to use the word anti-education. It makes me feel like a devil or something, but yeah. uh, the other word for anti or something, we had a short opening debate, which is really I really wanted I wanted to get your insights on that, so that at least uh, it, I don't want to give a false connotation to the idea that education is bad or good, because it's neither of both, as far as I'm concerned. From what I learned, is it's neither of
It's
both.
really it really depends on your intention.
Yes,
Like, why
yes,
are you educating
absolutely.
people? Because there are a lot of educated people, smart people, intelligent people
Hmm.
who are just awful people in general.
Yeah,
At the
yeah,
same time, there are not so educated people, but their heart is in the right place. So,
yeah,
education is neutral. It is up to the educator, to the education system, as to
absolutely.
you know
Yeah,
what you want the educated to be.
absolutely, absolutely. That's true. That's true. And I mean, I hope that you would put more years into the brackets. I do believe that you'd take science to the next level. For me, from the bottom of my heart, I'm proud of the fact that 2 years in the bag, and I hope there's gonna be more years in the bag, no matter what happens to the great legendary JM. I'm sure you have more stuff to put into the bag, and more to share, and hopefully open up the world of science into take it to the next level, which I do believe you will, because in science, I think there's this I don't know if you agree with me. I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson who said this, or someone, I don't really know who I'm quoting here, is that if you think you know more about what you're learning, then you are not yet there. And I'm sure you agree with me on that, because I just do
Yeah.
not know who said that. It was very, very powerful. I mean, that's the same thing for life. I mean,
Didn't I just said it a while ago?
yeah, yeah, but there was also someone who said that, actually, who I think
Ah,
Neil
yeah, yeah,
deGrasse
yeah, of
Tyson.
course, right, right.
Yeah, but I'm just respelling the thing, because what he said was more Americanized, and I cannot really put that American accent into the.
Right, right.
But yeah, okay, I'll just put an slash JM quotation there. But yeah, I mean, like I said, the love in my heart is with you all the way through to hopefully 20 years. Like I said, I have a feeling you're gonna do
Thank you,
something
brother. Thank you.
groundbreaking. I'm sure hopefully, I hope you're gonna do. You're not gonna make the next. You're not gonna make the next hydrogen bomb or anything. You just make something
No,
that
I'm
is.
not that. I'm not. I don't think I'm that kind of scientist anymore. So
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, like I said, more. I do believe that education, uh, for the right people, we need right people to educate people and take them to the next level. And in this conversation, you took it to the next level with Singh, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful. Like I said, like that is one of my that's one. This is actually one of my anticipated conversations of a long, long time. Ever since I met you on the first few years, I think last year, the pandemic, when the pandemic started, and then yeah, I had so many thoughts and different thoughts, and then the outcome of it was actually nice. I thought it was going to be bloodbath, and then hindi na kita bate kind of moment. But yeah.
no.
you know but
One thing I just because I could feel like we're about to close because you're already giving like the the thank you.
yeah.
One thing I've learned is to you know when I think a lot of people are scared of discourse because they're afraid of offending feelings. Like, you know, yun, like what you were saying, na parang feeling mo baka hindi na tayo magbate after our conversation. And
Yeah.
there are times that discourse can really take a wrong turn, and you know it is inevitable that sometimes you will definitely disagree with people.
True.
Right?
True.
Sometimes even to the point of burning bridges. But one thing I learned is that before you get to that point, I think conversations, mature discourse, elevated discourse is possible. It is possible to disagree with someone, and then at the end of the conversation, no punches were thrown.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Of course, there are certain types of discourse wherein you say the wrong thing and then, you know, bye. Bye, Felicia. You know, it's really
True.
It's really just non-negotiables. But
True.
for the most part, it's possible to disagree and still carry on becoming friends. Of course, as long as it doesn't impede with certain non-negotiables like human rights and all that, you know.
Those are the stuff.
Certain moral standards. Yeah, of course. Pero,
those are the stuff that I try to
what
avoid.
we talked about a while ago. Yeah, but what we talked about a while ago, don't worry about it. Like I said, I understand where you were coming from, naman. Yeah. And I'm sure there are others as well who share your sentiment. There are there are also others who share mine. So, like your series, it's called Let's Talk. I'm sure you've experienced talking to a lot of different points of view. So, it's really just that. So,
yeah, it's I'm glad. If you were right here in front of me, I would like. After 5 minutes, I'll probably say, "Hey, pal, let's go for a drink or something. You know, have a juice box or something."
You know, I've always wanted to go to Baguio. I wanted to go to that brewery.
Cafe.
I forgot.
That beer where they
the one that
make
has lots of beer.
I heard about it.
Draft beer, yes.
I don't know where that is,
I've
but
always wanted to go there.
Oh man, we can make that happen. I mean, live on the show, right on this episode, we're already making plans of probably by the release of this episode, the pandemic dies down or something. We've already had the selfie and everything, the suntukan selfie and then the beer selfie. You know, like holding beers and then just laughing at the next one. You know, I love to have a beer with you, pal, and sit down and just download as much as thing. And of course, as always, right before I wrap up the conversation, pal, I know some of my listeners out there would love to connect with you via social media. How will they find you on social media, pal?
Right. So they could follow the podcast at the Pisara Tales. So that's the Pisara, Pisara Tales, like, story tales, like, so yeah, just look it up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the usuals. If they want to connect with me personally, they could look up my Twitter, I guess. It's my personal Twitter is a bit far from what I say, but it's not just education. I talk about a lot of stuff there. At Space Racer on Twitter, at space _racer on Twitter, and at Space Racer Zoom on Instagram. I don't really post a lot on Instagram because I'm not
you
not
have a
handsome.
coolest introduction. You have the sexiest introduction. And then you have a sexiest, I gotta admit, you have a sexiest introduction. Then you also have a sexiest Twitter handle. That's something else. That speaks volumes, brother.
Space Racer. No, the Space Racer thing. Okay, short story before we go. The Space Racer. The reason why I see, I told you I have lots of stories.
I love you.
The Space Racer. The Space Racer moniker. It was actually came from my high school crush. When I was in first year, I was in because we were assigned tables in one of my classes. So we were assigned alphabetically, and so in one table there are usually two dudes and a girl. So I was in my table. I was in the front row because letter E. So alphabetically, I was one of the first ones in front. So I
Yeah.
was in that table with my one of my best friends in high school, and one of my first high school crushes, who is now also my best friend.
Yeah.
And there was one time the class was so boring, uh, because I was in the rightmost side of the table. So if you
Yeah.
can imagine like a horizontal table, three students, right? The girl was in the middle, and then my best friend was in the other side, and then I
Yeah.
was there. The class was so boring. This was like probably the second to the last or the last class of the day.
Yeah.
Uh, and then my crush was actually my best friend, my crush. For the purposes of this story, my crush. But
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, you know, we're best friends now. Anyway, she was doodling on my notebook while I was taking down notes.
Yeah.
She was doodling a rocket ship, and she wrote down
Ah.
the word space race, and I thought it was the cutest thing, and I thought, this could be my Twitter handle, and then I never bothered to change it. So it's just that's where space racer comes from. In fact, I took it to heart so much that I like the idea of the space,
Yeah.
space as in general,
Yeah.
as the final frontier. My new bike is actually named Tala. So I don't know if you've seen a picture of my new bike. I got it repainted to this beautiful chameleon color. So it's like a mixture of purple
Wow.
and blue.
I can
Sorry,
imagine.
purple and blue. So
Yeah.
there are sometimes if sunlight hits it at the right angle, you can see that it's purple. Sometimes it's
Ooh,
blue. So it changes that. Yeah, it's really good. And
beautiful.
I named it Tala because I don't know if you're familiar with the Filipino word tala.
I know the dance
Have you
moves.
heard? Yeah. So tala is the original Filipino word for star.
Yeah. Yeah.
And guess what my last name is?
Uh, Estrella.
My last name is
Oh.
Est-
Oh.
which is the
Okay.
Spanish word for
Stars.
star. So
Nice.
yes,
Here I am
that's it.
thinking. Here
Thank
I.
you.
It's funny. Here I am thinking that the
I'll be
Rajiv
here all
the
night.
Lotus. Yeah. Doom to this. Oh wait, we need to have that thing there. But yeah, it's funny now. Now it makes sense. Now it makes sense. A star space. I love it. I mean, yeah.
Yes.
It's funny. Even though as we were wrapping up the conversation, you kind of still connected. I don't know if you noticed is that you've connected the genesis of the conversation and the revelation of the conversation, and you just took it. I mean, I don't know if you understand, but you still connected it, and that's the one thing I love about the Let's Talk series is that unexpected connection changes the whole thing. And like I said, I never really do live research to people because some people don't want to talk about their past. I want them to talk about what they feel what
Right,
is
right.
worth put on paper, and then yeah, I mean, this is interesting. This is interesting. Now I know. Your nickname is gonna be changed in Messenger. So yeah, to an icon, because yeah,
Star.
because now I can relate to that, and I'm sure everybody who knows me and the reason. Let me just unveil it, and I think everybody knows is that my I also want to since you shared the whole concept of their name in corresponds to an object of our universe. My name in translation is actually, if you translate it into Hindi, it actually means oh wow, uh, it actually means
You forgot.
lotus. It means lotus. So
Lotus.
yeah, that's
Ah,
why
I
if you
see.
guys could see the
That's
whole
why you have that
lotus
logo.
thing, the lotus is the main. That's the
Yes,
main thing.
yes.
So yeah, so that is the yeah. It's really wow. It was like this is like unboxing a lot of stuff. Even towards the end, it's like there was no end. So this is really really fascinating. But yeah, I want to thank you for having this conversation with me, having this heart to heart conversation. I
Thank
mean,
you. Thank you as
this
well.
is
Thank you for having me.
this is now I can sleep better tonight knowing that I finally had a conversation without a without a fist fight with the legendary Jay-em Estrella, Jay-em Star. Man, that That's interesting. That's even much more JM Star. It's got some star quality in it, if you know what I mean. But yeah, much love to you, pal. Much power, much love, and more cheers. And like I said,
Much love.
more
Yes.
more years for you to go and spearhead and change the world. And yeah, and yeah.
Thank you very much, Raj. Thank you for having me.
And for those who are tuning in, I hope you learned a thing or two. I mean, this has been educational. Uh, no pun intended. Literally, this has been an education with the legend himself. I will see you folks in the next episode.